Good morning. If I may, 감사합니다. Thank you so very much for having me here. It is an incredible honor. I've been reading about the Goyang project. I think it's an amazing project. I think you're on the leading edge of what we do next in tourism, and I want to talk today a little bit about what's going on in the future of tourism around the world. My name is David Peacock. I am the Senior Advisor to the Future Tourism Group at Simpleview. That's me. Simpleview is the world's biggest tourism data company. We work on data and content with 900 destinations around the world. We work on six continents. We have over 400 million visitors a year look at the systems of our partners. And our partners are generally destinations, CVBs, bureaus, and the industry that serves tourism. We work in data science. We work in content systems. We work in app-based systems. We work in artificial intelligence. We work in predictive modeling. And pretty much anything you can do with data in tourism, we do it around the world. As the futurist for Simpleview, my job is to look around the world and to identify the trends that are shaping what's going on in tourism now, but also what is shaping what will happen in 5 and 10 years from now. So pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, 2019, when you look predominantly in North America and Europe, and I will tell you very clearly, the view you're going to get from me today is predominantly North American and European, which is why I'm so happy to be here in Korea, because I look forward to the next 2 days of sharing with you, but so much so learning from you about what it's like in your market and what's going on and what the pressing issues are. I've had 5 conversations this morning that have already excited my thinking about what's next. If you look pre-pandemic, in Europe, in North America, DMOs were shifting from what we called a marketing model to a management model. So the original DMO word, Destination Marketing Organization, we all know that word, yes? Yes. We've had a discussion for almost a decade now about shifting towards more management, more working directly with our civic partners, with our city partners, with our government partners. That began almost a decade ago. If you look at Europe, Europe is probably 10 years ahead of North America on that. They're very much focused on integrated models of tourism that work with many levels of citizens and governments. The person on the right here is my friend Petra Stusek. She is the president of European Cities Marketing, also known as City DNA. And as she says to me all the time, David, everybody's already moved on. Destinations are managing their destinations. It's just happening. The second thing that was happening pre-pandemic is disruption. You all work in a world where the rapid pace of the adoption of digital technologies is like never before. 15 years ago, we were just starting to build websites and digital communication platforms. Now, they're embedded in everything we do, and the traveler, our visitor, pretty much exists and lives exactly on their cell phone device, and we've all adapted to that. So that's happening pre-pandemic. Similarly, placemaking, and I would say Goyang is a massive experiment in placemaking, and what we call experiential tourism, tourism that takes you into an immersive experience, were becoming very vogue, and localism was starting to come to the surface. And this is my major lane, and this is what I do with Simpleview, engagement-based planning, working with unusual suspects in destinations to create comprehensive tourism models that serve, in this order, citizens first and travelers second. That was beginning in 2019. And then the pandemic hits. The pandemic accelerated 3 things very much so in North America and Europe. The first one is sustainability prior to the pandemic had a mantle or a name that was really understood by most people, not the people in the industry who understand sustainability, but most people in the general public as meaning environmental sustainability. Post-pandemic, post the events in Minnesota in 2019 with George Floyd, sustainability has three new mantles. One, we talk about economic sustainability. There is no point doing tourism in a destination if the value of tourism does not enrich the lives of the people who live in that area. And again, I'm very excited about the experiment that I call Goyang. I will be talking about the Goyang Experiment for the next 10 years. Good tourism enriches the lives of local people when they share their culture. That became very apparent in the crisis. The second thing that changed in sustainability was social sustainability. Equity, diversity, and inclusion has jumped to the forefront of thinking in North America. And again, the death of George Floyd in 2019 has a huge impact on that. And then the third one, of course, is environmental sustainability, which has never been more important. There is an environmental sustainability conference the next 2 days after today. I'm very excited to be part of that. As tourism bureaus, we have a huge role to play if we step up and play that role. And it's up to us to do that, because we can also be left out of that because there are plenty of civic bodies and other groups that will take that role. I think as DMOs, we have a huge role to play in sustainability. The third one, though, the one that, again, that I work on is stakeholder engagement and community alignment. Tourism must serve communities. Venice, Barcelona, all looking at tourism and saying, why are we doing this? Why is this good for us? We can't get to work on a given day. We're overcrowded. I live in a part of Canada where in the last 3 years I moved because on a weekend it's so busy, I can't even go grocery shopping. It's such a popular place. We must start to look at the rationalization of where we live and do it in a more sustainable way. And the only way to do that is to engage the stakeholders in those markets. So, of those three things, as I said, my focus is this engagement and community alignment. And I believe they matter now for so many more reasons, not the least of which is scarce resources and restricted travel. I'm very interested in the Goyang Experiment. What will engagement and alignment look like in the next 10 years? I have never seen a project like Goyang since university when I was reading about projects like Brasilia. This is a really interesting crucible, a place to form new ideas and to try new things and to fail at some things and to do really well at others. But when I walked in this morning, and at the elevator there's a map of Goyang, and it shows you not Goyang today, but it shows you the future plan of Goyang, and it's phenomenal to think about achieving that in the next 10 years. My favorite writer, one of my favorite writers, I don't know if he's popular in Korea, is a fellow named William Gibson. William Gibson has one of my favorite quotes. The future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. So for the past 10 years, I have been going around the world looking for the future. And I've been finding it. In pockets around the world, there are all sorts of tourism activities that point to what we will all be doing over the next 10 years. I'm going to give you 3 quick examples. Don't worry about taking notes. There's a big QR code that will come up on the screen. If you scan that QR code, then you'll be linked to about 6 articles that talk about engagement, that talk about sustainability, that talk about equity, diversity, inclusion. So that barcode will come up 3 times. That QR code will come up 3 times. If you get a chance, please take your phone out and scan the code and you will be linked to the articles. So 3 examples of innovative engagement where citizens became a crucial part of the planning of the future of destinations. One I like to talk about is the Bay of Plenty in New Zealand. Has anybody heard of programs in the Bay of Plenty? There we go. From New Zealand. Oh, very good, thank you. Another one is a regional tourism office in Canada called RTO4. That's where I come from. I was the CEO of RTO4, and 12 years ago we decided that we would do tourism without ever buying advertising. That was the premise. How can you do successful tourism development when you take your entire budget and you stop buying media? I mean, we've had a number of incredible successes, and I will tell you, out of 13 trials in Ontario, there were 13 regional offices. The one that has consistently outperformed everybody is the one that did not buy any advertising in 12 years. And then the second one, I want to talk to you about something we're doing at Simpleview to show you how we do data science to engage destinations, to engage citizens, to align their efforts to build great tourism destinations. So Bay of Plenty, almost 8 years ago, started with the idea that purposeful tourism sparks regeneration, and they decided they would build an engagement-based master plan. They would sit down with everybody in their communities from every walk of life, Indigenous New Zealanders, Maoris, people who were immigrants, and they would talk about what it is that made the essence of the Bay of Plenty and what it needed to be 20 years from now. They have built one of the most wonderful, reaching, sustainable and regenerative plans I have seen in tourism. I encourage everybody in this room to go to the link that I'll show you and read the regenerative tourism plan for the Bay of Plenty, because it's a harbinger of what we all need to do in the next 5 years. This is the regional tourism office that I helped build in Canada. We started with a notion of looking around the world, and we found one thing really interesting. The best destinations in the entire world all had one thing in common. They all had an engaged network of citizens, communities, and stakeholders who actively believed in a tourism plan that they helped to create. Think about that, a destination where the citizens and stakeholders actively participate in the creation of a 20-year vision. And what's very interesting is out of that planning comes a commitment from so many of that stakeholders to contribute to that plan. And if you look at this model, I don't want to go into detail. There is an article on the QR code that you can read about it. But it starts with a very succinct phase. And that first phase, phase one, is what I personally think may be the most single important thing we need to do as destination organizations, and that's this. You cannot change a destination, you cannot build a destination, you cannot improve it unless you engage a network of people to help you. That's an obvious truth. What happens next, though, is that group must agree on the DNA or the core principles of that place and what it will be 15 or 20 years from now. And you see this in various forms. We used to call it branding, we used to call it placemaking, but the bottom line is a network of stakeholders must agree on what we're going to be in 20 years. It should be authentic. If you live in the middle of a desert, you're clearly not going to open a swimming theme park and call it authentic. There are so many incredible authentic things that we can latch on to and amplify, because the world wants to visit us as authentic destinations to tell authentic stories. And then, when you have that network, when you have agreement on the DNA of a place, the next part is really easy. And this is kind of shocking to most people, but I believe a destination organization really only does three things. And if it does those three things with focus and does them well, it will be successful. And those three things are this. A destination organization can animate experiences. What does animate mean? Well, it means for every hour that you travel to get to Goyang, you need 4 hours of something to do. And those 4 hours must be intriguing and captivating, etc. So we look at so many great destinations around the world and we say, hey, in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, there's an incredible Shakespearean theater. And people come from all over the country, in fact, all over the world, to come to the Stratford Festival. It's great. You fly into town, drive into town. The theater lasts an hour and a half, but you've come from 5 hours away. What's next? We worked with Stratford for a decade to amplify the offerings and to work with all the operators in that place to animate Stratford. And the way we do that is really simple. We use small amounts of money with all our partners, all our businesses, and said, if you could make Stratford more cultural, more Shakespearean, we will co-fund you. So that's animation, and there's many different ways to animate your destinations. But we all know that as travelers, we like animated destinations. When was the last time you wanted to go somewhere that at 8 o'clock at night on a Thursday, nothing was happening? We like animated destinations. The second thing is hygiene. When we started the regional tourism office, we found that essentially half of all tourism stuff was broken. Bad websites, bad links, bad purchasing applications, bad booking engines. Sometimes it was in the destination itself, bad street signs that didn't tell you where to go. So much of what we can do in tourism is really easy and reachable. It's fix the things that don't work. If you had a house and the roof was leaking, you wouldn't spend your next $1,000 buying a big screen TV. You would fix the roof. Tourism needs to look at hygiene, needs to look at what it needs to fix to make the event seamless. Gabriel Sader told me this morning he couldn't find Kintex. He was looking for signs. He was looking for ways to get here that helped him get here. That's a hygiene issue. Easily fixable, changes the experience completely. Storytelling. This is the most fun part. As DMOs for years, we told the stories. Well, guess what? We're not bad at telling stories, but the best stories are told by the people who create those stories. And what we did at RTL4 is we took all our money that we would spend on advertising and we worked with our partners to amplify their ability to tell stories. Now, that would have been impossible 20 years ago, but with the advent of the cell phone, every single business, every operator was a storyteller. And what we do is we empower those entities in our destinations to tell authentic stories. And if you think about it, every one of those operators has multiple channels: Facebook, TripAdvisor, Instagram, Google, and they all have their own vertical of followers. So perhaps you are a long-distance swimmer or a kayaker or in my case, a mountain biker. I've been all over the world. You'd be surprised to find that a lot of the places I find because I look for mountain biking, and the next thing you know, I'm in Nepal, or I'm in the Sierra Nevada, or I'm in Cusco in Peru. I would not have got there looking at tourism advertising that came through the usual channels, big media. I got there by talking to mountain bikers, and we have to remember that fact that let the operator, let the business partner tell the story, and they will reach the vertical that has an affinity for them. So I'm here in Kintex today because my interest is the future of tourism, and I met a fellow named Peter Lee with my friend Guy Bigwood, and that's how I end up in Korea. The storytelling comes from an authentic source. I believe that source, and I want to join that. So those are the three things that we can do in tourism. First of all, we build networks, we identify DNA, and the rest of tourism, in my opinion, and I will have a long discussion with anybody on this, is really animating, cleaning up, and telling stories. If we do that well, we will be successful. The last one, I want to show you just a bit of data science. I work for Simpleview, the world's largest tourism data company. Obviously, we work heavily in AI and predictive modeling. This is a thing called the Digital Influence Report. And this example, this example actually does come out of Queenstown, New Zealand. They surveyed 400 businesses that make up their tourism partners: restaurants, accommodations, attractions, events, retailers. And they looked at every one of those entities. So suppose, for example, you ran the surfboard store. Well, you would have probably about 5 channels that you use. You would use your Google My Business or Google Business Profile listing. You'd probably have a TripAdvisor page. You have an Instagram account. And you're probably using a couple of other channels like Foursquare or Bing or a different mapping program for people to find you. So every operator has about 5 verticals they work in. And in a given operator's environment, a restaurant or the surfboard store, there's maybe 100 data points, not a lot more. So with 400 operators at 100 data points, that's only 40,000 data points. By today's standard, that's a very tiny, tiny number. We're able to take those 40,000 data points and we're able to look at the digital strength of the destination. When someone looks into Queenstown from out in the world, what do they see? Generally, they see these prominent partners and their websites, etc. So we started to look at improving the digital presence of operators, and this is where it gets really interesting. This is one operator in a different place. They operate a climbing company in a small town in Canada. And what we do is we work with them over the course of 3 months to improve their digital profile. And the way we do that is we have coaches. And the coaches simply go in and said, look, digitally, you do really well with your Google. You are doing lovely with maps. Oh, except you have listings inaccuracy. So imagine that One Axe Pursuits has a couple different addresses in certain web assets. Well, Google sees that and says, you're unreliable, and they push them down the list. And then 1X does poorly when it comes to search. So our objective at Simpleview is to help that operator become more digitally savvy. Simple things come up. Do you know Bing and Foursquare? So people always ask us, why would you use Bing when there's Google? Well, Alexa and Siri use Bing and Foursquare as the database for mapping. So we say to most of our partners, I know you don't use Bing and none of your friends do, but if someone turns to Alexa and says, how do I find 1X pursuits? If you're not on Bing on Foursquare, it says, I don't know. So simple fixes at the operator level. And again, back to where all the regional tourism office money goes, it goes to doing this work. It doesn't go to buying advertising. It goes to helping the destination be more shareable and more shared. All right, I do encourage you to scan the QR code. I will leave it up for a second. There are about 5 really good examples. Articles that you could read and you can translate easily on Google Translator. And I will run this, I'll put the QR code up again in a couple minutes. I've got a minute left. He said, not telling the truth. All right, I'm over time. Okay, so quickly. The part that's exciting for me being here is being here, and I think it's tremendous, and I had no expectation to be the keynote, so again, thank you so very much for letting me do that. The next 2 days is a sustainability conference. Dr. Peter Lee, Dr. Lee, where are you? He's left. Dr. Peter Lee has left the building. Anyway, Dr. Lee invited me. I'm very excited about this. When you start to work in destinations and you start to work in long-term planning, very quickly, obviously you all know this, sustainability becomes a key issue in your mind. And when it does, if you're anything like me, for about the first 3 months, your heart crashes because it looks so incredibly difficult. There, Dr. Lee, I was just thanking you for inviting me here. Thank you so much. Very, very much honored by that. As they say, 감사합니다. Okay, can I have one more minute? Thank you. Can I go back to my slides?
네, PPT 화면 다시 한번 보여주시겠습니까?
Okay, so, all right. The big issue is sustainability. We talked about it. Sustainability is social, economic, and environmental. 3 columns. If one of those fails, it doesn't work. We're going to have to work on all of those for the next 10 years. This is my friend Guy Bigwood. Mr. Bigwood, where are you? Could you stand up? He's had a haircut recently. We were in Europe and we argued a court case in front of a group of European magistrates on the idea of what is the role and function of the destination organization in sustainability. We're going to spend 2 days unpacking that in Goyang, and I'm really, really excited about that. I'm excited to hear the ideas, I'm excited to hear the challenges, and I'm just so excited to hear stuff I don't know about. So that's very exciting. That's the next 2 days. I will tell you this, one last thing. This is the last thing. We did a piece of research at Simpleview this year, and we asked, is your DMO actively working on sustainability initiatives? Now, the results were promising. Literally, all 3 areas were covered. Most DMOs out of 600 surveyed said they were working on environmental sustainability, they were working on economic sustainability, they were working on social sustainability. But here's the difficult part on that, and it's the part in the red at the bottom. Less than 1/3 of those DMOs, who all have interest in those areas, actually have any internal staff or any internal budget to work on those areas. So here we are talking about working on sustainability. Half of all our DMOs are working on 3 things, but they literally have no budget and no staffing for it. So again, I want to unpack that over the next 3 days. I need to see how we get from here to there. We know that sustainability will be a key issue for destinations, and I will tell you why. One last statement. Because as storytellers, as aggregators, as people who bring other people together, we are excellent at that. We are well suited to play a pivotal role in helping drive destination and community sustainability forward. So again, I will look at my hand and say, 감사합니다. Thank you so much for listening. And one more QR code in case you need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your insightful presentation.